A narrow cobblestone alley in Paris, whispered with echoes as two shadowy figures huddled beneath a flickering lamplight. Kody and Robyn Brown stood cloaked in bulky coats and oversized sunglasses, their forms nearly indistinguishable in the misty gloom. A light drizzle fell from the early spring sky, soaking the edges of their papers and blurring their breath in the chill. Kody's hands trembled as he examined the documents in his grasp. New identities, new beginnings. He glanced down the lane nervously. "We just need to make it to the station," he muttered, voice hoarse. Robyn shifted closer, gripping his arm tightly. "But what if they already know?" She whispered, her voice laced with fear rather than cold. Their pace quickened, rubber soles slipping slightly on damp stone. Every passing figure became a potential threat. A car slowed nearby. Kody's eyes darted toward it, heart pounding. He felt the tension in Robyn's grasp grow tighter. Then came the sound, tires skidding against stone. A black van screeched to a halt at the alley's entrance. Doors burst open. Figures emerged swiftly, shadows moving like lightning. Floodlights cut through the gloom, landing squarely on the startled couple. "Kody Brown. Robyn Brown. You need to come with us." Kody stood frozen. Robyn's handbag hit the ground, its contents spilling. Cash, passports, a one-way ticket to Zurich. The silence shattered with disbelief. Kody's fists clenched. "This isn't happening," he whispered, his voice cracking. Robyn's eyes filled with tears. "You said we had more time," she murmured. "You said this would work." Agents moved in swiftly, taking them by the arms. One leaned in close and said coldly, "You should have thought this through before moving that property under someone else's name." As they were guided into the vehicle, Paris faded behind them, along with their illusion of control. Back in Flagstaff, Arizona, Christine, Janelle, and Meri Brown sat in a cozy cafe, the soft clink of mugs and the hum of conversation around them. The television above the fireplace caught everyone's attention with a flashing headline. Former reality stars detained in Paris amid land ownership investigation. Christine leaned back in her chair with a smirk. Well, looks like karma packed her bags too. Janelle sipped her latte, grinning. Guess he's finally facing a real commitment now. Meri, calm as ever, looked up from her tea. "Justice served with a croissant," she murmured. They clinked mugs quietly, a toast to closure, not celebration. Meanwhile, in a sterile Paris holding cell, Kody and Robyn sat side by side on a cold bench, dressed in institutional gray. The atmosphere was thick with silence. Robyn's eyes were swollen from crying, and Kody stared ahead, numb. "At least we're still together," Kody mumbled. Robyn didn't answer right away. She stared at the wall as if it might give her a different ending. "I can't believe this is where we ended up," she whispered. The clang of cell doors echoed down the corridor, marking the beginning of a very different chapter. Days later, American news outlets exploded with coverage. Analysts dissected every element of the case, from the sudden name transfer of Coyote Pass properties to the mysterious last-minute trip abroad. Social media thrived on it. Memes, video clips, side-by-side comparisons of Kody inspecting Coyote Pass in the show versus his current predicament filled timelines. Everyone had an opinion. A network requested an interview with Christine. She politely declined. "Some moments don't need a camera crew," she said with a smile. Instead, she sat on her back porch that evening, gazing at the stars. "There's peace in endings," she whispered. In a contrasting corner of life, Meri Brown flourished. Following her spiritual and legal separation from Kody, Meri had found strength and serenity. In early 2024, she adopted a dog named Zona. The bond was immediate. Zona became more than a pet. She was Meri's anchor during stormy days. Zona and I, we were meant for each other, she wrote in a post that went viral with supportive comments. As rumors about her love life swirled, Meri led her actions. Not had pause to care for Zona and recharge, Meri returned her focus to Lizzie's Heritage Inn. The bed and breakfast, long a part of her family legacy, underwent renovations and reimagining. She shared glimpses of freshly painted walls, restored woodwork, and cozy corners on her stories, writing, "Things are finally happening around here." Her journey wasn't just about property or business. It was about reclaiming her voice. Her post summed it up best. "I grew up in silence, but I'm not silent anymore. I am worthy of being heard." Christine, too, was finding joy again. She had been open about the heartbreak of her relationship with Kody, especially his absence during their daughter's major surgery. But now her days were filled with laughter, a new fiancé, and rekindled family connections. Janelle stayed grounded in her independence, enjoying her adult children, her freedom, and the freedom from long-dormant expectations. And as for Kody, his relationships with many of his older children had frayed. His once commanding voice seemed quieter, his control over the Brown family's empire dissolved. Where he had once spoken of legacy and unity, now there were only courtrooms, headlines, and reflections of choices made. Back at Lizzie's Heritage Inn, Meri stood by the fireplace, Zona at her feet. The inn glowed warmly, filled with the scent of wood polish and fresh paint. She reached for her journal and scribbled a note. "There's beauty in the rebuild. The strongest walls rise after the storm." And outside, the Arizona sky stretched on, wide, open, the crisp and early morning air of Flagstaff, Arizona. The courthouse stood tall and imposing, its marble columns glowing softly under the rising sun. News trucks lined the street outside, their satellite dishes pointed skyward like antennae hungry for scandal. Reporters, cameras in hand, buzzed with anticipation. The trial of the year was about to begin, the case that had the entire nation talking. State of Arizona versus Kody Brown. Inside, the courtroom was packed. On one side sat Janelle and Meri Brown, poised, solemn, and surrounded by their legal team. Their expressions were steel-clad, their eyes full of hard-earned resolve. On the other side sat Kody Brown, his face gaunt, his golden curls disheveled, and his suit hanging a little too loosely on his frame. Robyn was absent from the courtroom, choosing to stay behind closed doors, avoiding the frenzy. The case was simple, but the implications were huge. Embezzlement, falsification of documents, and fraudulent use of property titles tied to the infamous Coyote Pass. For years, the Brown family had publicly argued over the land. Whose name was on the deeds, who paid for what, who was owed what. But buried in the financial records were discrepancies that only recently came to light, thanks to Janelle's quiet persistence and Meri's meticulous digging. It started with a single ledger. Months earlier, while reviewing old tax documents in preparation for an audit, Janelle noticed something strange. Her personal contributions to the Coyote Pass Property Fund were not matching up with the official statements. At first, she thought it was a clerical error. But the deeper she looked, the more irregularities she found. Names missing, amounts shifted, and most notably, Kody listed as the sole beneficiary on documents that were supposed to be joint-owned. She brought it to Meri's attention. Meri, ever cautious, didn't want to jump to conclusions. But something about the numbers, and her growing distrust after years of strained relationships, pushed her to investigate. The two women, long kept apart by emotional distance and broken family ties, joined forces. And what they uncovered was staggering. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. Land documents signed without consent. Legal loopholes Kody had quietly manipulated. The biggest betrayal was that both women had contributed significant portions of their personal finances to help purchase the land. Money from Meri's bed and breakfast. Cash Janelle had saved from years of working with family businesses. Gone and funneled into a singular ownership plan that pointed squarely back to Kody and Robyn. And so they went to court. Their attorney, a sharp and relentless woman named Dana Harwick, laid out the evidence with precision. Photos of signed checks, testimony from notaries, email threads in which Kody promised the land was for the whole family, only to later adjust the deeds quietly behind closed doors. When Meri took the stand, her voice didn't shake. "I believed in the dream," she said firmly, "but belief doesn't excuse theft." Janelle followed. Her testimony was concise, full of dates and dollar amounts, a perfect storm of emotional clarity and financial proof. "This wasn't just a betrayal of trust," she said, locking eyes with Kody. "This was a betrayal of ownership, of partnership, of family." Kody, when his turn came, insisted it was all a misunderstanding. He fumbled through his explanations, claiming the family structure was always fluid, that decisions were made in the moment. But the documents didn't lie. And the final blow came from an unexpected witness, a former financial advisor of the Browns. Under oath, he admitted Kody had asked for strategic redirection of funds to avoid paying taxes on shared assets. By the end of the week, the judge looked visibly perturbed, and when the verdict came in, guilty on 3 counts of fraud and embezzlement, a stunned hush fell across the courtroom. Kody Brown was taken into custody on the spot, his hands cuffed before he could even reach the courthouse. Cheers erupted. Former fans and followers of Sister Wives held signs that read, "Justice for Janelle," and "Koyo Pass belongs to all." Reporters shoved microphones toward Meri and Janelle as they emerged, but the two women walked quietly to the steps, pausing only for a brief statement. "This isn't about revenge," Janelle said, her voice calm. "It's about accountability." Meri nodded. "We stayed silent for a long time, but not anymore." The headlines that followed were relentless. "Kody Brown behind bars." "Meri and Janelle take down family rant." "Coyote pass freed. Land to be returned to rightful owners." Back in Flagstaff, Meri returned to her bed and breakfast, where renovations were finally complete. The rooms were brighter now, sunlit and warm, filled with the kind of peace that comes after years of storm. She walked through the halls with Sona, her beloved dog, and for the first time in years, she felt truly at home. Janelle bought a small plot of land not far from Koyo Pass, not because she wanted to be near the past, but because she wanted to reclaim it. She was building something new, a wellness retreat for women seeking independence after heartbreak. She named it The Rise. They didn't see each other every day, but every few weeks, Janelle would drive down with a bottle of wine, and they'd sit on the porch of Lizzie's Heritage Inn, watching the stars. Laughing, healing, free. "I never thought we'd get here," Meri once said, sipping tea as Nona snored beside her. Janelle smiled. "Me either, but we did." Somewhere far away, behind stone walls and locked gates, Kody sat in a small cell with nothing but time to reflect. He had spent decades trying to control his world, only to see it slip through his fingers, undone by the very women he once underestimated. But for Meri and Janelle, the story wasn't about his downfall. It was about their rise. And this time, it wasn't a reality show script. It was real life. And they were finally the ones writing it.